Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Up Your Confidence, another episode of Up Your Confidence is where we empower, equip, and elevate you to up your confidence every day and deliver your God-given potential. And today I'm excited to have my friend uh, Alicia McLain with us. And Alicia, I'm gonna try to find her bio really quick and read that for us here. See. All right. Alicia is a certified professional coach, a public speaker, trainer, and an entrepreneur. She's an organizational, transformational, and leadership coach with over 20 years of experience within the software development and IT domain. As an agility coach, her expertise is in change management aspect of agile transformation. Alicia coaches, train, and transform mid-sized to large company, both domestically and internationally. She's known as the organizational whisperer. I love that. Alicia has a focus on using coaching to build agility, accountability in organization and on team. She has a keen sense of connecting individuals to their purpose and helping them build leadership agility and resilience to tackle the challenge of the daily work. Her work helps her client increase their positive intelligence and mental fitness to meet the demand of their life. And that's going to be the focus of our conversation today. Alicia holds a bachelor's degree in information system, a minor in Spanish from San Diego State University, and a master's degree in organizational leadership from Chapman University. Alicia and her wife are nomad. They live in their RV and travel around the US. She's enjoyed hiking in the US National Park, exploring new city, home craft, and color pencil art. Thank you. Welcome, Alicia, to the Up Your Confidence podcast.
Thank you so much for this great invitation and introduction. You know, when I think about some of the things that you said about my background, it really plays right into, this idea of upping your confidence, because what we're going to talk about today has everything to do with us upping our confidence. So I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you, and you have been on the calendar to be here for a month. And I always like to talk about how I meet my guests. And we met in an Agile mentoring group, if I recall. I don't recall exactly, but it was sometime in the second quarter of this year. And you, maybe even before that, I think maybe before that, but then you came in and you gave us an assessment that we're going to talk about. I did the assessment, and then I had a follow-up coaching call with you, and it was phenomenal. So from that moment, from the first moment, I was like, she got to be on the podcast. But knowing everybody with busy schedule, we finally made it happen. And I'm so excited that this is going to be the last episode of the year, because we need to be in the right mindset, to prepare ourselves for the new year that we are, it's upon us. So let's start by talking about what is positive intelligence and how did you get into it?
Yeah, so positive intelligence and mental fitness are really the same idea. And mental fitness is our ability to manage our way through life's challenges with a more positive mental framework versus a negative framework. And, we all have these negative thoughts. We all do. It's just part of our wiring as being human. We just have these negative thoughts as part of our left brain. And so, but sometimes we don't realize that that's a distorted message about our reality. And so we think that, when we feel badly about something or feel badly about a situation, we don't realize that we're creating our own horror movie, basically, by whipping up this giant story. So what this work helps us to do is recognize certain patterns of thinking so that we can separate ourselves from them and realize that they are distortion, and really find more creative ways and ways that can take us into ease and flow to be able to navigate through our life. Because there is another option. It doesn't have to be this negative story. And so the way that I got into it, so I've been a coach for, wow, I've been a coach for a number of years, but I took a coach certification program back in 2017. And then I have my ICF credential. ICF is the International Coach Federation. It's the global gold standard for professional coaching. I got that certification, I think, in 2018. And then it was probably about a year or so later where I was introduced to this concept. I was doing some pro bono coaching with an organization, and they kind of sent out this email telling us about this. And I'm telling you, this work is a game changer. It is an absolute game changer, because I don't know about you, but I was never really taught to witness my thinking. And so that's what this work helps us to do, is to really witness and sort of separate from those negative messages so we can have 100x more positive outcomes in our life.
Awesome. So the question that is coming to my mind right away is, where are those negative thoughts coming from? Where are they rooted from? Before we can even get into what is it? Where are they coming from?
It's a great question. It's a great question. So as a human, we are all wired with a left brain and a right brain. And there are parts of our left brain, the original cave person function of those parts of our left brain is to, I'll just say, to be hypervigilant, to look out for being, the next saber-toothed tiger's lunch. A cave person was constantly looking around, in fear, worrying about being the next bear or saber-toothed tiger's lunch. And so that wiring, that survival wiring, the survival of the species requires this sort of crazy, constant negative messaging. And so it really comes from parts of our left brain, and that's just how we're wired. And so I call it a feature of being human. And this work around positive intelligence, it doesn't make it go away, but what it does is it turns the volume down on it. That's been my whole series. I've put a whole series together talking about turn down the volume or hit the mute button on these messages so that you can recognize that it's a distortion and then step into your power.
I love that analogy of turn down the volume, because it's like literally you can do that. It's so easy. It's something you can easily do, So let's get into it. So what are those, because I took the assessment, but I want you to talk to my audience as if they have no idea what this is about, right? Because before you take the assessment, you read a little bit. So in the positive intelligent realm, there's this thing that we call saboteur. So you made us take this saboteur assessment. So what are the saboteur? Because I'm saying it in French. Saboteur is a French word. So
yes, it is. And I appreciate your pronunciation of it. And I'll just have to say too that I'm super excited about getting this workout in front of this audience, because my commitment as a positive intelligence coach is to get this workout in front of women and BIPOC communities. And so I'm very excited to bring this message because this is just not something that we would typically be the first in line to get in terms of information. So you are a trailblazer to bring this to your audience.
Thank you.
What happens is, you're welcome. So what happens is that you take the assessment. It's a link that you get. If you go out to positiveintelligence.com, you can just go to assessment. You can take it. It's like, I don't know, maybe it takes 5 to 7 minutes to take it. And what it does is it helps you, it ranks the patterns of thinking that you have by the way that you've responded to the questions. And so these 9 patterns of thinking, it's actually a total of 10, but the 9 accomplished patterns of thinking are what you're going to get a ranking on. So you'll take the assessment and then you'll get a report back within 24 hours that says, these are the patterns of thinking that you're more prone to. And so your report is going to look different from someone else's report because this is the way that you responded to these questions. And so there's the first pattern of thinking, which is universal to everybody, and it's called the judge. And the judge is, a lot of people are familiar with the concept of an inner critic. Like, you've got this message in your head that's constantly telling you you're not good enough or you're not, So the judge is expands beyond just inner critic. The judge finds fault with self, others, and circumstances. So whatever the event is that's occurred, the judge, I call the judge the first responder. The judge shows up first, says, this is awful, and then brings in whatever accomplice saboteur meets the need of the circumstance. And so if you have a top three of, and I'll go through all these in a bit, but the controller, the pleaser, and the hyper-rational, then those would be, one of those accomplices would be what the judge would, that would be a pattern of thinking that would start up after the judge has said, this is awful. So the 9 patterns of thinking, there's the controller, and it's funny because each one of these comes with a little graphic, and the graphic shows like a little puppet.
I never pay attention to that. That's true. I never pay attention to it. Yeah, I know that. Yeah, but I thought it was just an icon, but apparently, there's a thing behind it.
It's funny because when you look at the graphic, it really plays into the name of the saboteur.
Right.
Yeah. So the controller has the little puppet. The hyperachiever is holding a trophy in the air and then has 3 trophies stuffed up under her arm. The restless looks like they've got an iPad and a computer and a telephone and a book, and just can't keep themselves focused.
Right.
The stickler is looking through a magnifying glass and clipping little things to make sure that they're perfectly even. The pleaser is a little dramatic. The pleaser has 4 arms and each hand has a heart in it. And you can see it's ripped out of the chest and there's like blood. I was like, so that's a little dramatic. The hypervigilant is like biting the nails and sweating, the avoider has the bag over the head. The victim has the big drama cloud, woe is me. And then the hyper-rational has, a calculator and, facts and figures and that kind of thing. So each one of these, when you take your assessment and you go out to the website, the Positive Intelligence website, there's a tab for each one. And you can read the description, the characteristics, the thoughts, the feelings, all of that stuff. There's some things that are missing there. But you can get a lot of good information here. And if you work with a positive intelligence coach like myself, I can help fill in the blanks on what's missing on that page there. Because the reality is that when people take these assessments, they're often not surprised by what they get. Because the reality is that even though these are saboteur patterns of thinking, all of this originates in your original strength. So, for instance, if you're a hyperachiever, your original born into this world strength is that you're an achiever. It's when you get into negative emotion and the saboteur patterns of thinking get their hooks into you, it becomes the hyperachiever, and you become a pain in your own hiney and in the hiney of other people around you.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like that with all of them. All of these have an original strength. The pleaser, the first original strength of the pleaser is they're empathetic. It's just when they get on overdrive and when they get in excess, it's like anything in excess, right? It could be a problem. So so that describes the 9 patterns. It talks a little bit about the judge. What's coming up for you? What questions do you have?
No, I love what you just said last, because that was the question that I had that I was going to ask you, is like, because when I look, the word saboteur for me, because I speak French, it's a negative word, right? But when I look at those 9 saboteur that you just described, I'm wondering, those could be a strength. Those are actually some people's strength. But now that you just said that, it kind of like rests me a little bit, because I have like the restless in me sometimes. I feel a little bit rested in my mind that, okay, it's not actually weakness. It's just when you get on overdrive, that is really become a negative thing that you have to avoid.
Yeah. All of this is based, all of the 9 accomplices have an original strength. And they are amazing qualities to have to navigate your life. The challenge is, this idea of the left brain and the right brain and being able to access our ease and our flow and our original strength we actually have our best expression of that ability to access our right brain as well as our left brain when we're 5 years old. So as we get older, we start getting atrophy and this inability to access our sage power and our sage wisdom. The sage is the right hand side of the brain, and this is where ease and flow is. This is where we can really step into our original powers without being strangled by the saboteurs. But we lose that over time. So if you think about biceps and you think about this left brain being way up here and the bicep for the right brain being like way down here, we need to build up that muscle. And that's what the mental fitness part of this work is it's about doing some very mini exercises every day, multiple times a day, to build up our access to our sage and our original power.
So how do we weaken our saboteur then on a daily basis?
That's a great question.
One thing is we know about it, so you have to have self-awareness. Now, how do you weaken them in those moments?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there are 3 factors that contribute to weakening the saboteur patterns of thinking. And as I say this, I want to be really clear that when people take the assessment, the first thing that they start to say is, oh, I'm a restless, or I'm a pleaser, or I'm a victim. We want to be really careful about the I am statements. Yes. This is not an I am. This is I have a pattern of thinking, because to your point, the awareness is the first step in the awareness is knowing it's there and separating yourself from it. So we want to really be able to do that. So you mentioned it. The first step is to be aware of the patterns of thinking, and that's called Saboteur Interceptor. So knowing that the pattern of thinking is there, being aware of the characteristics. When you notice the pattern of thinking, there's that judge, there's that pleaser, and just catching, I always say with a butterfly net, catching those patterns of thinking when they come up. The second thing is sage. So that's knowing that when you find yourself in this negative pattern of thinking, stepping into the sage perspective. And the sage perspective is whatever has just happened here, there's a gift and opportunity. So really challenging your mind to think about what's the gift and opportunity. There are also 5 powers of the sage. So once you decide, you start to think about the gift and opportunity, you can think about using these superpowers. The first power of the sage is empathy, the love of self and others. The second power is explore, the love of discovery. The third power is innovate, the love for possibilities. And I love that one because it's the game there is based on improv and really brainstorming and all that great stuff. The next, which is totally fun. The next one is navigate, the love for purpose and meaning. And the 5th one is activate, the love for making things happen. And each one of those has a game, a guide, and a move. And so when you get into your coaching work with your positive intelligence coach, they can help you with that. So that's the second thing, is the sage perspective and just really being in your sage. And then the third one is self-command. And self-command is when the event happens, not getting triggered. And so how do we not get triggered? Well, we do that through those PQ reps. Remember, we did those on the call. Yes. We did one of them on the call.
Yes.
Yeah. And the first, yes, you're there you go. So the first one would be to rub an index finger and a thumb together. It actually doesn't matter which hand. And what you're noticing in this is you're noticing the ridges, the temperature, the texture. What the point is, it's a mindfulness technique to get you out of your head and into your body. This is just one. That's just one technique, and you do this for about 10 seconds. And the way that you know when it's time to do this throughout the day is when you find yourself in negative emotion. Because when you find yourself in negative emotion, that's the signal that your saboteurs are going to start firing. Ooh. So that's the key. That's the gatekeeper. So the second one is to put your palms together. You put your palms together like this, and then you just rub the fingertips of one hand down to the base of the other hand. And you're just doing this in a way where you're noticing the temperature, the texture, the ridges, noticing any rings that you're rolling over. Again, getting out of your head and into your body. So these are just 2 techniques. I did this the other day on a call. I found myself in the moment because I was on the call and I saw myself on Zoom and I saw my palms together and I thought, look at that.
You also taught
Yeah.
me the feet one, or we talked about the feet, the one with the foot. I like that a lot because that one you can just be really discreet. You don't have to
Yes, you
like,
can be. Yes. Yeah, let's talk about that one. So yeah, so you just make sure that your feet are on the floor. And what you're now focusing your attention on is the bottom of your feet. What are you noticing about the surface that your feet are on? You're just noticing the temperature, the texture, the quality of the surface, whatever that is. You're just noticing that, spending a few moments noticing that. And then you're going to start to wiggle your toes. And you're going to wiggle your toes in a way where you're like doing a roll call check-in with every single toe. And just like you can't text and drive, you cannot have this pattern of
yes,
thinking spinning on a hamster wheel and check in with your toes like that. And you're right,
yes.
that's a discreet one that you can do on a call without someone saying, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah, and it kind of like withdraw you from the moment, instead of, because I mean you never know how soon you can get triggered, but if you feel the trigger and you do that, it withdraw you, because there's no way you can be counting and wiggling each of your toe and be in that moment. It's like there's something with the brain, those PQ rep, they do work. I've actually tried the tap one, but the feet one definitely is like my go-to. For sure.
That's great.
Because
I
I've
always
seen
ask
it work. I've
people
seen
what their
it
go-to. Yeah.
work for me, because I feel like it also depends on how your physiology is. For me, my feet center me usually. And then when I'm sitting at the
Ah,
desk, usually my feet is like raised up. So when I do something and bring it down, it's actually like, okay, this is a moment where I want to really center myself, So it helped me a lot.
that's great. I always like to hear which one of these three is a go-to for people. I love the feet on the floor one. I've actually even used that um, while driving, which
Oh.
may sound crazy, but I'm terrified of heights. And so we had a
Ooh.
situation where I was driving and it was in a situation that would normally make me very, very anxious.
And you
And
go
when I get
places,
really anxious,
you
yeah,
go really wild places. So
yeah, and some of these places have serious drop-offs, and I can get so anxious, like I'll start trembling. So I
mm.
was driving and I had my right foot on the gas pedal and I was wiggling my toes with my left foot the whole time.
Oh
Just to
wow.
keep I call it the fear center, just to keep the
Yes.
fear center quiet so that I could drive and be calm. Yeah.
That is amazing. I would never have thought, you can use it in, but yeah, anything that you feel like it's. I really love this walk, because I feel like we can really use our brain to calm ourselves down, right? And we
Absolutely.
like at the center of ourselves, and we are responsible for our emotion and how we show up in the world. And instead of you playing the victim, or acting the
Absolutely.
victim, it gives you a tool. For me, it's all about the tools that you can use to make yourself a better human being.
Absolutely. This is so, so true, because all of this anxiety and stress and worry and fret and whatever, this is a horror movie of our own creating.
Totally.
It's on a
Totally.
jumbotron and it's just got loudspeakers blasting out of the left side of our brain, and we can turn that volume down and we can step into self-command. We can step into our power. We can empower ourselves. It is game changing to know this, that we have these options. We have these options. We don't have to, like you said, be the victim or whatever the other ones are. We don't have to play that role. We just don't have to. We have choices, and
I
that's
love
amazing.
it. One other question that I also had, because I think the whole idea behind the positive intelligent movement, it's not only to better yourself, like we mentioned, but it's also to have better relationship. So can you unpack that a little bit? How can we leverage that to
uh,
manage our relationship? We don't have the whole,
this is just this just
we don't have a full hour. But let's say that is like a whole
well,
course,
I have to
right?
tell you that I tell you, this is partly why I have such a passion to bring this to BIPOC communities. I also have a passion to bring this to women who are justice involved. So women who are either currently incarcerated or upon reentry, because we almost have a prison of our own thinking.
Oh
And so
Lord.
when we believe that whatever these patterns of thinking have us whipping up a story about, that's a reality we're creating for ourselves. So how can we change our reality? And so when you think about relationships, I'll just use a stickler as an example. So the stickler and the hypervigilant can be really challenging patterns of thinking because they're just so relentless, and they can just destroy, that pattern of thinking can just destroy relationships, because you see the stickler there clipping the little things in that little graphic, and the hypervigilant like constantly worried and constantly whatever. If you can't get control of that pattern of thinking,
I'm not
it is
saying
just
that I'm a
hard for people to
stickler.
be around you.
I am not a stickler, but I do play the stickler role.
You have a pattern of thinking that can be stickler.
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you, because what happens is when we don't have an awareness that this is a pattern of thinking, when we don't realize that we can separate from it, and we just stay in this state of being, it's really taxing on the body, and it's very taxing on our relationships. And for people that don't understand, it's just hard to it's just hard to be around that constant stress. There's another one here too. It's there's a hypervigilant. The controller can be another challenging one too. And they're all challenging. They're all challenging. We all have our suffering. This is what I say. When I see someone else and I see that they're triggered and I see that they're in their saboteur, I just recognize that as their suffering. Yes. I have my suffering, you have your suffering, and I have empathy for them.
Yeah, Deepak Chopra call it suffering. It's like self-afflicted suffering that you put on yourself.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And so when you notice that you're in conflict with somebody and you can see that they're triggered and you can see these patterns of thinking, because honestly, when I coach people today, I can have the first 30 minutes of a conversation with somebody and I can start to pick out which saboteurs could be in their top 3 just from the language. Yeah, because it's amazing how they show up in our language. Yeah. So yeah, it's a real challenge for us in relationship. And it's the self-command piece that helps us in our relationship. When we can be aware of the saboteur pattern of thinking, we can step into the gift and opportunity with the sage. And when we can do these PQ reps to calm ourselves down, that is game changing for relationships. It's game changing for communities. It's game changing for the world, frankly, because when I think about people of color, there are isms that are out there in the world, and those isms are there. But what the saboteur likes to do is take the ism and just whip you with it. And we don't have to own that. The ism, the ism is out there, but I don't have to own that. I don't have to own that. My mother always used to say, it doesn't matter what they call you, it's about what you answer to.
Ooh, that's my favorite.
What this work helps us.
That's my favorite saying.
Yeah. And there's a quote by Maya Angelou that I love as well. Let me just see if I can bring this one up here. I love this quote. You may not control the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. Yes. That's what this work is about. Yes. It's all out there. It just is, right? But we don't have to own it and continue to whip ourselves with it. We just don't have to do that. And this is where it changes relationships. It can change communities. As you can see, I get a little fired up about it.
No, I get fired up with that too. And it totally makes sense, because when I'm looking at each of these, since we've done this exercise almost 6 months ago, I can tell you that when I'm talking to people, my team, I haven't shared this with anybody, because usually I have a list of assessment that I like to give to new team member, but these are not new team members, so I haven't had an opportunity to just whip another assessment on them. But I've been just observing, and like you say, by talking to people, I have my guess of because even your family member, I sent this to my husband last night. Absolutely. I was like, please take it, but I can literally guess, which one I can saboteur. My daughter, I can get a saboteur. So there's a power in that. If you can recognize for other folks, you can also help them with the self-command that you talk about. So it's totally
absolutely
it's totally game changer, and everybody can just have their own technique to come to the center, so we can live a better relationship together. So I love that.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, Shazad, who is the founder of this work, Shazad Shamin, he has a real passion for getting this to younger people. So like people that are 10 years old and older, because let's face it, today's world is harsh on
Oh
kids
gosh,
with
yes.
social media and all the messages about what you should be. And so people don't find their own wealth and self-value just in knowing that they are enough. And so when you watch the TED Talk that he does, you can see that he talks about his son and how he has always said to his son, yeah, I love you just because you're you. It has nothing else to do with doing or anything else. And so this message is so important for young people because it's a struggle out there for young kids.
Yeah, I remember now because we watched the TED Talk first before we did the assessment. I remember. I'm gonna have to make my daughter watch it because she's 10 years old.
Yeah,
so that's total. It's good because it just lists this stuff for you, and you can have technique already at a younger age. Imagine if at a younger age you already have techniques. It just imagine.
Amazing. Yes.
Just imagine. I mean, us in our 40s, now trying to do that. But imagine if you're really young and you have a tool set that you can use.
Yes.
So I know that you coach people. I want to understand, or you can share with us, how do people come to you and what is the results that you get from, coaching them, and what are like the testimony?
Oh, yeah. I have such a great example of this recently, but how people come to me. So I coach in a lot of different places. I coach on the Better Up platform, and then I have my own coaching clients. Most of my coaching clients come to me through the Agile transformation work because this is part of the whole organizational change bit, because it's an assessment, it's visioning, it's training, and it's coaching. So that whole part there, coaching comes as part of that. And I have people that come to me just for leadership coaching. Like I just got a message on LinkedIn, like on Friday, and I hadn't responded to that person yet because I've been a little slow on LinkedIn. I broke my leg in Durango. And so when I broke my leg, it's like, I slipped and fell down these stairs, the snow. Lord. It was just like a little light coat of snow, and I just flew down those stairs and I just mangled my leg. Oh. But you'd think I broke my calendar and my brain. I'm just having a little bit hard time keeping up with things.
Take your time. Take your time.
Yes, take my time. Yeah. So she just reached out because she's looking for leadership coaching. So people just come to me for a variety of different ways. I do a lot of public speaking, and through that public speaking, people come to me for coaching as well. So what happens? So here's a great example. So one of my coachees has a very high pleaser pattern of thinking. And the pleaser pattern of thinking is everybody else is first, I'm last. And if I ask for anything that I need, I would be selfish. So that's the pattern of thinking. If you look at the description of the pattern of thinking for pleaser. And so the last conversation that I had with her, I felt like I needed to write a blog post about this, the pleaser in salary negotiation, because she was getting a new job and she went into this job being aware of her pleaser pattern of thinking. She did her PQ reps. She went in and got that money. She went in and got that signing bonus. These are not things she would have done before, because the pleaser would have said, oh, don't ask for that. That would be selfish. And so that was just game changing for her to go through a salary negotiation and feel her power in it. So that's just one of the most amazing, most recent examples of being aware of your saboteur patterns of thinking.
I love it. She went from a pleaser to controller.
To being in control.
To be in control of the whole situation. I love it.
Yeah.
Because when you look at, I don't know if the way they set up, the pleaser is like in the bottom, right? For whatever reason, it doesn't really matter.
Necessarily, it doesn't matter because it depends on how you respond.
It's based on mine. Okay, I got it. It's based on my results.
The pleaser's low for you.
Yes. Got it. Because I'm looking at mine and I'm like, she went from like 0 to like high suddenly, but totally. Nice. But one question that I had is, do people, because some other assessment, right? People evolve, people grow. is that similar thing with this assessment? Like maybe you take it, like the person that you just talked about, and then a couple of years later, they change, they change the different saboteur change. Is
I
that
don't know about the
true?
saboteurs changing necessarily, because remember, these come from your original strengths.
Okay.
And so your original strengths are showing up in the way that you respond to these questions. But what I will say changes is that you just step into the better expression of yourself. You experience life in a more ease and flow state. I will tell you, there is a phenomenal TED Talk that shows very clearly about the science of left brain and right brain. And the name of this TED Talk is called A Stroke of Insight. And it's a brain scientist, a woman that's a brain scientist. She actually has a stroke and she completely loses the left-hand side of her brain. And so what she tells you in this TED Talk is what it's like to not have that fear center, not have those patterns of thinking. It's phenomenal. It's a great TED Talk. You can put that in your
Oh,
show notes for
yes.
people.
I'm like, I love this kind of stuff. Like, I'm already trying to imagine how she was able to connect to her other side of brain and leverage it so powerfully. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
yeah.
I'm
Well,
gonna
what was
check it
so
out.
interesting is she described her being, because the left brain's job is to separate you, is to have you feel like you're separated from someone else. The right brain's job is not that. And so she describes herself. It's very, I can't even describe it. It's so fascinating. And she has two books too. I'll send you the link to the TED Talk and the link to her books. It's
Okay, awesome.
fascinating stuff.
Yes,
Yeah,
totally.
yeah, yeah. It'll be great for your show notes. Yeah.
Thank you. That's sweet. Let's get to learn a little bit about you, because this is my favorite part of the show, where I get to learn more about my guests. And
Yeah.
I want to know, what do you do to off your confidence? What are your confidence habits?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it's interesting. I've done a couple of things over the years. So before positive intelligence, and this is the hyperachiever in me, so I'm just going to admit that this is my hyperachiever. And before I knew about my hyperachiever, this is something that I did. So to up my confidence, what I would do if I was feeling like I was having a low moment is I would remember times where I had achievement. And the way that I would do that is if I had something that represented that achievement. So unfortunately, it kind of reminds me of the hyperachiever with the trophies. But like, so for instance, I was in direct sales for many years and I won a lot of different awards. And so some of those awards were like, not so much a trophy, but it could have been like a ring or it could have been whatever. So I would remember, and I actually could put myself back into the feeling of achieving that thing in the moment when I achieved it. So that I would do, this was before positive intelligence. Now, what I do with positive intelligence is I love these mindfulness practices, these PQ reps, the centering practices. I do yoga now. I love the Peloton app. They have this series called Yoga Anywhere. It might as well be yoga in my RV, because
Yes.
yoga anywhere you could do anywhere. And I don't need a lot of space for it. So I do yoga and I really love that. Those are just a couple things that I do to really bring me back to my center and remember my superpowers. Oh, one other thing that I do. So one of the exercises that you do in positive intelligence, and it's the empathy game, is it takes you back to yourself as a child, and you have an exercise where you write these I am statements. And so I have that picture of myself with those I am statements. So that's another thing that I do to up my confidence, is just to remember my original power.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I love it. Remember your original power. And
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with the way you were doing it before, because it's also come back to remembering your original, power. Because it's like, if I
That's
want
true. It's
all
just a different way to do it. Yeah.
different
Yeah,
way,
that's
because
true.
I've read a lot of places where they say, remind yourself of how great you were, it's still the same person, because society will like to
Yeah.
bring you down, and it's usually small moment, so it's good to go back to like those great moments to negate the
Yeah.
small moment that is trying to bring you down. So I love it. Thank you.
Exactly.
You.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We love to have you. And I want to leave you with a last information that you might want to share with if there's any question that I didn't ask, because I'm not the expert, what should you say to somebody that is looking at it and say, I don't know, should I try to understand what I'm a saboteur? Well, what do you want to tell them to really inspire them?
Yeah. Well, to really inspire them, I would just say that this opens the door for so many possibilities for yourself beyond what you could possibly even imagine. And so give yourself the gift of this awareness. You said this earlier, elevating and empowering and all of this it really starts with self-awareness. And so educating yourself about these patterns of thinking so that you can step into the best expression of yourself. I know I've said this before, but it is game changing.
Because it is
Yeah.
it is. And for you, fun thing that we can talk about with Alicia for the next couple of minutes is we know you travel a lot, right? So you
Yes.
travel in your RV, and sorry again to hear that you fell in Durango, but how does that help you? Because I feel like when you're a nomad, right, and you move in with
Yeah.
your wife in different places, how do you how do you leverage your positive intelligence to meet new people, and adapt?
You know what? I will tell you, I will absolutely tell you the first thing that's so important about this. So, one of the first qualities of the hypervigilance is a concern about safety. Now, I don't have a high hypervigilant, but when we decided to sell our house and get outside of my little Southern California bubble that I have been in for a very long time, I had fear. I had fear. And so the way that I use positive intelligence, and it always reminds me of my dad, is just sort of how I show up in a new space. I show up with light. I show up with peace, ease, and flow. When I meet somebody and they're like all twisted up in their own suffering, I just acknowledge that that's their suffering and I don't go there with them. Because there's been an incident or two because it's two women here and we got this big old 45-foot toy hauler, and we got this big old F450 truck. Sometimes the men at the different parks that we come into feel like that they need to park our truck for us and park our rig for us. I'm like, no, we're good. And then they get angry. So I just recognize that that's their suffering. And I just don't invite anything negative. And
I'm
I'll
so
tell
glad
you,
I asked that question, because it makes sense, it makes sense.
yeah. Yeah. So that's probably been the biggest. So two things. The concern about safety is in between my ears, and I understand that. The second thing is my fear of heights. I cannot tell you the game-changing work that I have done around my fear of heights. And it all started on Imogene Pass in Colorado. But I don't want to say I'm cured of my fear of heights, but we went on this thing just this week called Hell's Revenge, and it's a Jeep, it's a Hummer tour over all these arches and I mean drop offs and the whole thing. And I'm just sitting back, just calm.
Oh gosh.
I would have been hyper vigilant on that before. So that's how I use my positive intelligence.
So that is making you grow into a stronger person, and fearless, making you fearless, definitely.
It's the truth, because I mean, there's some hikes I wouldn't have gone on. There's some things I just wouldn't have. There's things we wouldn't have ever signed up to do. We hiked up to the top of Chimney Rock, which is in Pagosa Springs. I would never have been able to do that without this positive intelligence work. I just wouldn't have been able to do it.
Do you post all your pictures somewhere on social media about all this?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, yes, as a matter of fact, we have a YouTube channel and we have an Instagram, and our name of our channel is called Mile High Beach. And it's Mile High because my wife is from Colorado, the Mile High city, and beach for me because I grew up in Southern California near all the beaches. So we're Mile High Beach on Instagram and on YouTube. And so we're documenting our travels and we're documenting these things. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
because I'm looking, I'm like, okay, I need to go see the picture, I don't want to hear about it, I want to see it, I need the visual. So this is super cool. I'm gonna add this in the
Yeah.
in the show note as well, so people can follow you, because I'll definitely follow.
Oh, that would be
I
great.
am not that much of it. I'm not that adventurous, I'm the beach girl. No hike. The most hike I've done was in Arizona, and I did it in the daytime because there was a night hike, and I was like, no, I don't want to see any animal. No. I want to be bright, 8 o'clock in the morning. And we went as far as I could feel it. I was like, okay, nope. I don't want to be up there looking down. Nope. I'm not that much brave. So, but if somebody's brave, I want to see images.
Well, one thing you'll see,
it's beautiful.
Oh, I'm telling you, it's just been so much fun. And one of the things that we started doing at the end of our video, and then sometimes we put it on our Instagram post, is we discovered this guy that created this banner called Live a Great Story. And so you can buy stickers and banners and all this other stuff. So whenever we get to one of the tops of those achievements that we would not have done otherwise, we put up our banner and say, Live a Great Story. And it's been just so amazing. But to answer your question, that positive intelligence work has been so helpful for me to be able to step out of the fear.
Totally. I can just imagine that. I didn't know that that's how you were gonna answer, but I was like, there must be a correlation, because you do this for a living, you coach people, and you have to live it yourself in your daily life, and you going into this adventurous life. It has to help you somehow to bridge the fear.
It does.
Yeah, totally.
Every day. Yep. Yeah.
Awesome. This was so much fun having you, Alicia. I know you have your pod that you're setting up soon. So if you can tell us a little bit about it, so that we can share that information with our listener.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the best ways to get into this work is to experience it in an immersive experience. And I have some pods that I'm starting. The pods are small group sessions, 5 people, typically 5 people in a pod, and I'll have multiple pods, and it's an app-based experience. So you download the PQ app on your phone, and then once a week, you'll have a video directly from Shirzad Shameen talking about whatever the concept is. And I can kind of go through, I've got a schedule here that kind of talks through it. So like in the first week, you boost your self-command. In week 2, you intercept the judge. In week 3, you look at those accomplice saboteurs. In week 4, you shift to sage. In week 5, you boost your sage powers. In week 6, you take action. And week 7, it's continuing your practice. And so each week you have a guided app exercises. And what I love about it in the app is there's this thing called the PQ gym. So the 3 exercises that I showed you, there's many more mindfulness practices, listening and visual and body movement, all kinds of exercises in the PQ gym. And you have access to all of this. It's a 6-week program. And then there's a weekly pod meeting where I'll be coaching the group. And then the rest of it, you're on your own and you're doing your work in the app. And it's just so nice because it's right on the app and it comes up and it reminds you, and you do the PQ reps. So all that's coming. And what a great way to kick off the new year, right?
That's what I was going to say. This is like a perfect timing. So I'll make sure we share all that information with our listener, because I want folks to start. I mean, this past 18, almost 2 years has been really rough on our mental health, on ourselves, so it's like we all, hopefully we want to get back to whatever that new normal is, but we want to be equipped with more things that can help us with our mental health and, well-being as well. So this is totally
That's the truth.
Game changer.
Yeah,
this is totally
it is.
This is totally going to be needed.
Yes,
so thank you for that. I really think this is important, and I'm so glad that you're offering that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll send you, when we're over, I'll send you all the links to the stuff, and it will just be it's such a great time of year for this. This is the end of the year, time for reflection, time for, setting up the new year, and this is a perfect time to jump into this.
Yes, I totally
Yeah.
agree. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for
Yes.
dropping all this awesome nugget. And I'm gonna make sure that we follow you because I want to see everything that you're doing, even though you're going back to sunny California soon, but we want to see everything that happened, and
Yes.
take care and enjoy the holidays.
Thank you so much, Lisette. You too. It was so
Bye.
nice to be here. Thank you so much.
Bye.